Hi, okay, look, I'd like to talk about the Jimmy Savile scandal for a variety of reasons. Now, we've just had the Conservative Party conferences taking place and all sorts of nastiness is going down there, and it's made me incandescent with rage. Boris worship, Osborne, oh, give away all your rights and, you know, you can have a share in some firm that's going to collapse after you work for it for 6 years and you're going to get nothing out of it, etc., etc., etc. And the Labour Party as well, going back to the days of Disraeli. So yeah, so they're all going backwards, not to the 20th century, but to the 19th century, which is enough to really piss everybody off. And we should be up in arms in the streets about it. They should be dangling from lampposts. But there's something else I want to talk about. First of all, I'll say that it's about the Jimmy Savile thing. It's all come as a great surprise to a lot of people. Or has it? I can remember way back in 1979, I think it was, the Winter of Discontent. I was at a pub in Homerton, Hackney. I think it was called the Durango Arms. It's a long time ago, so I don't really have too much details about it. But I'm absolutely sure it was New Year's Eve. And it was a proper East End pub with a drag show and everybody pissed out of their heads and so on. A lot of raucous screeching from the ladies and so on and so forth. A lot of audience participation. And the drag queens were being totally outrageous. So it was a real proper East End night. But one of the drag queens come on and he was going on all about Jimmy Savile. Jokes about Jimmy Savile being in Stoke Mandeville and interfering with the kids and so on. Everybody thought it was absolutely hilarious. And the reason that they thought it was absolutely hilarious, I suppose, first of all, it was cathartic. Because there's nothing about it in the media where the man was lionized, adversity of God. And you heard rumours about it and so forth, but you hear many rumours. But this person was up and very, you know, their act was based upon to put down the Jimmy Savile and his disgusting sexual habits with underage girls and so forth. And later on, like about 1 o'clock in the morning when the acts had finished and everybody was kind of reeling out into the cold night, the conversation was mostly about Jimmy Savile, what a dirty bastard he was, and everybody seemed to know about it. So in other words, it was common knowledge. So now the so-called scandal has arisen. This brings up a lot of things. I think it's quite interesting. I'd rather be talking about politics or something else, you know, something big and weighty. But I think that this is big and weighty because it brings up a lot of questions. It's not only about Jimmy Savile. It's about the enormous cover-up that went on. And it's about the industrial and disgusting industrial abuse of young children, girls in particular, but boys as well. Not only by these celebrities, but also by the church, particularly the Catholic Church, institutions, orphanages and so on. You see, I saw the programme the other week about it, like, and I don't disbelieve what these girls were saying. And it all made sense to me. And I think it made sense to anybody that was listening. There was a lot of people in denial, as they say. But after that programme, I think that the lid was off, and there's now talk about stripping him of his OBE and his Sir Jimmy Savile. Well, that's not good enough for me. I'm a fucking anarchist, right? I don't believe there should be Sirs and OBEs or anything like that anyway. So stripping the dead man of his OBE doesn't really mean too much to me. It's a whole culture of abuse that means a lot to me. A culture of abuse that continues to this day. And a culture of abuse that's been going on, well, since the year dot. And particularly against young girls. And by members of the establishment. I'm not into paranoid conspiracy theories or anything like that. But I would definitely say, in this particular case, there was an establishment cover-up. Because if people in 1979, in a pub in the East End, knew all about it and were making jokes about it, then, you know, these were just ordinary people, just ordinary East Enders with no connection with Jimmy Savile or anything like that. But we knew, people knew. So if we knew, then the people that run the BBC knew, and they knew that what he was doing. And the people that run the orphanages and the approved schools of girls that he went to, and the people that run in Top of the Pops, they knew as well. But it was all covered up. Of course, the can of worms has been opened now, and he's been linked with Gary Glitter and with the absolutely hideous Freddie Starr, who was denying everything. I was never on his show. I don't know anything about it. But apparently over the front page of the tabloids today, it's a different thing. There he is on the show. Oh, I forgot about it. Yeah, I'm quite sure you forgot about it, mate. And I'm quite sure you forgot about a few other things that might have happened later on in the changing rooms and in the dressing rooms. But I don't want to go into the sordid details there. But I'll say this: the thing that struck me about the one of the people that gave testimony was to the television program, was it Jimmy Savile, to put it crudely, tried touching her up as a prelude to raping her, but she wasn't having anything, and she stormed out and said, "That dirty bastard," or words to that effect. You know, "That dirty bastard has tried to get off with me," you know. And for protesting about it, she was dragged away by two of the screws or whatever it is of this particular institution, and was placed in solitary confinement. Which for a young girl that's undergone a thing like to be placed in solitary confinement is a bad thing. And another girl complained about it, and the person that was running the school, the headmistress or whatever it was, said to her, "You're lying. How dare you make up such accusations against the man?" And this must have happened like with dozens, if not hundreds of people. I personally, before I'd heard the story about till that night in 1979 and in the pub in the East End, I'd heard stories about Jimmy Savile. And I'd heard that in the very early days, before he was a big disc jockey and charitable fundraiser and so on, that in the northern nightclubs where he was a DJ and so on, he actually had a whole lot of heavies that if anybody threatened to spill the beans on him, these heavies would be going around threatening the people's parents and threatening the kid themselves. So this must have been known about by tens of thousands of people, but no one blew the gaff on it, as to say. Establishment figures are very good at telling us how to live and what to do and so on and so forth, but they themselves are serial abusers of children and so forth. You look back at the Victorian eras, there was plenty of child brothels where underage girls and boys were sexually abused by members of the establishment. Not only were they sexually abused, but they were flagellated and birched and whipped and so on for the perverted pleasures of the aristocracy and the people that run society at that time. In other words, the very same people that run it today. I've got nothing against adults engaging in any kind of sex whatsoever, even if it's so bizarre you wouldn't even think it was sex. I mean, there was a spanner group where men were having their penises nailed to planks of wood and so on years ago, and they were prosecuted it and sent to jail for it, which I think was wrong because it was consenting adults. And as far as I'm concerned, consenting adults can do exactly what they like. But when it comes to children, and 14 and 15-year-old girls in particular being abused by men in authority, men that are abusing their trust and so on, that's completely a different matter. It's a culture of abuse. It's a culture of cover-up, and I'm glad at last it's been exposed. But it's not only Jimmy Savile. It's only Gary Glitter. There was all the thing about the Rolling Stones having it off with groupies, and the groupies weren't exactly like newbar 20-year-olds. They were 14 and 15-year-olds. And if you think I'm having you on, you want to have a look at the case of Mandy Smith and that hideous, shriveled up old thing, Bill Wyman. When he was 50, he was dating a 13-year-old girl, Mandy Smith. He married her when she reached the age of consent, when she was 18 or something, well, beyond the age of consent, making out he never had sex with her. Her mother was complicit in it as well, complicit to the extent where she married Bill Wyman's son. So it's fucking weird. You've got the aristocracy, the literal aristocracy, getting up to their thing, and you've got this new aristocracy the aristocracy of entertainment, the aristocracy of pop. Now, I don't think there's anything consensual, even if a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old wanted to get off with Jimmy Savile and so on, which I think is highly unlikely, then I think that Jimmy Savile should have said no to anybody of that age. I mean, you know, a 17-year-old getting off with a 15-year-old, well, yeah, you know, there is, that's a bit different. But teachers, people of that age and so on, it's disgusting. It's wrong. These people should be like, well, basically banished from society, at the very least. We believe in free sexuality, the free expression of sexuality. But I don't think that dirty old men or grown-up adults getting off with very young girls has got anything to do with freedom. It's manipulation, it's exploitation. That's what it is. It's all that and more. And it's disgusting. It's reprehensible. It's got nothing to do with free sexuality. It's got nothing to do with sexual freedom. It's got nothing to do with that. It's pure, unadulterated exploitation. And as anarchists, and as anybody that's halfway decent, we don't want anything like that. An anarchist society is about free sexuality, but it's not about dirty old men, or dirty old women actually, getting off with young and vulnerable people. Young people, young children have sexual feelings. Freud, you know, even though he's discredited, did in fact say this, and it's quite true that young people do have sexual feelings and so on. You know, everybody's heard of, well, probably everybody's involved in playing mums and dads. I mean, you know what that is when we're young. But we do it, or we did it with each other when we were 7 or, you know, 11 and so on. We didn't do it with our, you know, people that were the same age of our mums and dads. So I found myself quite incandescent with race, not only with the fact that these things happen and happen quite regularly, and there's also the Rochdale case, and there's a case of all these men that are exploiting these young girls and vulnerable underage girls, which I've talked about in previous things. It's all disgusting. These people, as far as I'm concerned, they're as bad as any murderer or any rapist. And in fact, that's what they're doing, because they are murderers, because they're destroying people's lives, which is what murder does. They're destroying all the... Jimmy Savile, he must have destroyed the lives, the self-confidence, the self-esteem of hundreds, and this is what it amounted to, of young girls, and that's just one man. So if you multiply this many times over, we've got hundreds of thousands of young girls and boys as well, when you think of the stuff that took place in the church, and you think of people like Jonathan King, who did it on an industrial scale. Hundreds of thousands of people whose lives have been ruined just by these celebrities. Never mind like the people in power, the people that have power and so on. This is on a massive scale. It's massive abuse. It's just as bad as, you know, the exploitation of the workers and so on and so forth. The fact is that most of these people are from, you know, the lower depths of society, people in orphanages, people in kids in approved schools, people that under the sway of these authority figures who abuse their authority. And then these authority figures have got the nerve to tell us what to do and how to live. That's why we got to get rid of them. They've got too much power over us anyway. And this is just another expression of their power over 14 and 15-year-old girls and boys. So we want to have a revolution. We want to destroy this. And in Greece, you might have noticed, the vanguard of the kids out on the streets, the school kids, the 15, 16-year-olds. It was a 15-year-old school kid that was shot dead by the police in 2008. I think it was 2008, or 2010, or whenever it was, that led to the uprising in Greece, which is going on to this day, which was linked up with the uprising against the austerity measures and so on, which is still going on to this day, which is probably happening on the streets of Greece now. So kids, don't be scared. Get together. Come out on the streets. Do what you were doing a couple of years ago. You're welcome. Come out. Do it again. Give us an example. You're the future, not us. Our generation have fucked it up. We want you to come out and do it, and we'll come out and join you. Yeah, brilliant, you know. But, you know, we failed you. But don't fail yourselves. Don't take any kind of abuse, particularly sexual abuse. And I'll say about an anarchist society that there is no form of anarchist sexuality. We believe in freedom. If people want to be monogamous, they should be monogamous. If people don't want to have sex, they shouldn't have sex. If people want to be gay, they should be gay. If people want to carry out strange sexual practices and unusual practices, as long as they're not exploiting anybody else, then they should do it. They should have the freedom to do it. If people want to have multiple partners, they should have the freedom to do it. But only under conditions of freedom, not under conditions of coercion and so forth, which is exactly what this was. And I think that in a free society, you wouldn't want to get 14-year-olds getting off with old geezers like me and so on. It's quite fucking disgusting, if you want my opinion. Although some people might be turned on by it. But anarchism's got nothing to do with that. An anarchist society is about freedom and freedom of choice. And freedom of choice is not the exploitation of the young by people in positions of power, positions of responsibility, and so on. Anybody that abuses their power and responsibility, and particularly with the sexuality of young children, as far as I'm concerned, is completely beyond the ken. And like, you know, if they executed them, I wouldn't, you know, even though I'm an anarchist, I wouldn't be losing any tears over them. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. And I also don't think that these people can be rehabilitated either. It's a complete myth to think that serial rapists and serial abusers can be cured, can be somehow transformed. They can't. They've been doing it. Jimmy Savile was doing it for 4 decades, for Christ's sake. He was never gonna, you know, he was never gonna change. Nothing could ever stop him. He just had to be removed from society. You can translate that any way you want. Well, that's it, really. I feel really angry about it, and so do millions and millions of other people, particularly the people that were taken in by him and so on, particularly people that trusted him and so forth. But the can of worms is open, and there's more cans of worms open. But there's another thing as well, the BBC. They knew exactly what was going on, the people that run it, the people in charge. You remember what would happen to you if you didn't pay your TV license. You'd be up in court, and if you refused to pay it, or couldn't pay it, then you'd be in jail. Eventually. That's what happens to us when we don't pay our TV license. And yet they can give hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pounds in today's money to these presenters that were industrially, on an industrial scale, abusing children, and that's okay. And everybody knew about it. I don't think that all the controllers and everybody didn't know about it. As I said, if people in an East End pub in 1979 knew about it, and apparently this was going on as far back as 1959 with Mr. Savile. So it's 4 decades of it. Well, you don't know. The whole establishment must know about it. Yeah, and he got an OBE, became Sir Jimmy Savile, as I said before. What did he get that for? His charitable exploits, or maybe other exploits? Who knows? But that's all I want to say about it, except this, to the kids. Don't be fooled and conned by these dirty bastards and anything like that. And we've got a lot of young people coming into the anarchist movement and that are involved in things. And there's a lot of older people of my age, maybe even in their 30s and 40s, that want to take advantage of young people and say to them, oh, well, you know, you're not, well, basically, unless you're an anarchist or you're going to be free sexually. True, this is what we believe. But their idea of being free sexually is to sleep with the young girls and young boys and so on, you know, to pressurize, to con them. Oh, you're not a real anarchist unless you have sex, unless you're completely free and have sex with me, which is what they're saying. So I say, we've got to, in the anarchist movement, and in any other movement as well, in any other social grouping, we've got to clean up our act, get rid of these people. I don't fucking care what happens to them. You know, if they commit suicide or throw themselves as a cliff, so much the better. I'll be there selling tickets. I'll be there cheering it on. We want to create a society. This is always going to happen. But we want to create a society free of sexual repression and so on, where this thing is completely marginalised, rather than central, which is what it seems to be now. Okay, so revolution, revolutionary upheaval, with the kids, with the old age pensioners, with all of us getting out onto the streets, rediscovering our lives, taking our lives into our own hands and so on, sweeping aside this garbage, the ruling class and so on, the same ruling class that have been ruling us for hundreds of years, the old Etonians, the would-be, the Ed Miliband's and so forth, the controllers of the BBC, the head of the Bank of England, the royal family. Let's have our revolution, let's get rid of them, let's have our sexual revolution, but let's have a real sexual revolution, let's have a proper revolution. You can't have a sexual revolution unless you've got a complete revolution. And you can't, you know, the two are interlinked. Social revolution. You know, revolution isn't only on the streets, it's everywhere. But unless it immediately takes place on the streets, you haven't got a revolution. Revolution doesn't take place in talking shops. It doesn't take place in the internet. It doesn't take place in your head. It takes place immediately on the streets. And the kids that were out on the streets for the student demos, they are the future. And I hope that they will not allow themselves to be abused or anything like that. And I don't think that they fucking will, because they stood up to the police. If they stood up to the police, they can stand up to sleaze. So I'm afraid I've ranted and I've raved as usual. I've gone well over my time. I was only going to talk about it for 20 minutes. I could probably go on for another hour, but I'd just be repeating myself. So say no to abusers, expose them, drive them out. We don't want them in the anarchist movement, and we don't want them in society. And what happens to them, we don't really fucking care. We just want them away. We just want to have a genuine debate, genuine sexuality, but we don't want these people around. So that's all I want to say at the moment. If that sounds authoritarian, if it doesn't sound anarchist, well, that's just too fucking bad. Okay, so until next time, that's it.